It's recording. Everybody can hear me. Can you hear me out there?
It says recording on mine too.
It does?
Yeah,
Oh, that
a
is,
little red thing here.
it's kind of cool, little iPad there.
This is our new system, so you guys are.
So we're on, Denise, are you coming up here? That's good, because we're live, yeah, yep, we're on.
I haven't downloaded.
There are 8 billion people potentially watching you walk up there, just so you know. Sorry, I'll wait for you. Okay, this is the Planning Commission meeting to be held on Tuesday, August 13th, 2019 at 6 p.m. in the Common Council Chambers, Room 100 of the Greenfield City Hall. Would you please call the roll? Present.
Alderperson Kastner.
This is odd. Present.
You have to push the mic too. There's a button.
Denise Collins.
Present.
Steve Rogers.
I'm here.
Brian Weiss. Christine Helene. Don Carlson.
Present.
Bob Krantz.
Present.
Okay, Commissioner Sponholz isn't here tonight. I'm not sure. He has a work schedule that he may be showing up late. Until then, alternate member Carlson has the opportunity to vote on any matter. Commissioner Krenz can speak to any issue that's before the thing, but are you watching me on your iPad?
I was. He was. A little delayed, but it's still there.
So before we begin tonight, we have a new audiovisual system in City Hall now, replacing the stuff that was installed in 1984 or 87 when the cable franchise agreement was put into place. It's all digital and it's supposed to be state of the art. It's run by an iPad here or there. We are streaming tonight to the world. Anything in this meeting can be watched on, we have a YouTube channel. I'm not sure what the address for that is. If you just type in City of Greenfield, Wisconsin, we'll probably get that up on our website pretty quickly.
It is actually.
Is that what it is?
It's on our website. There's a link.
Okay, we'll have to update the rules so we don't look at iPads while we're
I know. You look good, actually.
in a meeting. All right. So there's also some differences in the controls. So if someone's not speaking or you don't hear them, just kind of wave at us so we remember to do what we were instructed to do 3 minutes before this meeting. Okay, item 2 is approval of the minutes from the July 9th, 2019 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Helene. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Rogers. All in favor? All opposed? Commissioner Collins abstains. Item 3, discussion regarding last common council meetings.
There were no public hearings at the July council meeting. However, the owner of the house next to Paul's Liquor, well, it's Paul Sadu on 27th Street, he was had presented before the Plan Commission a plan to tear the house down and put a parking lot, and there were some deadlines that the Plan Commission had imposed. He did ask the Common Council, who ultimately approves plans, for a 1-year extension of time, and the council approved that. So he has until July of 2020 to submit, well, he has submitted all the plans. So he has till July of 2020 to actually do the work for the parking lot, and then till 2021 to submit plans for an actual commercial building.
The good news is the house that was dilapidated and abandoned long since time ago has been torn down and is now grass. And so that was one of the, I think, the critical things of the Common Council. So thank you. Item 4 is being moved back right now because one of the architects is in Mugwanago and I'm not from Muskego, and I'm not sure where the other one is. So. Item 5 is signed plan appeal for Bob's Discount Furniture, an existing business at 4585 South 76th Street, submitted by Sign Effects. Are they here? You know you have to get a permit, right? It's just, yeah. Before you put it up. Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So Bob's Discount Furniture is seeking a variance to add an additional sign on the east elevation of their building. The current code reads that they're allowed 1 wall sign and 1 monument sign for a maximum of 200 square feet. Previous tenants in this location, I think starting with Ultimate Electronics, had been granted waivers to allow for additional signage beyond what the code allows. An inventory of the current signage at Bob's Discount Furniture shows that they've got a considerable amount of signage beyond what is allowed in the code. they've got totaling just about 900 square feet of signage, which is about 4.5 times what the code would allowed, including 2 pylon signs, one on the north part of the parcel and one adjacent to 76th Street, that are not compliant with how the code reads today. So the signage that they're seeking is a 44.38 square foot wall sign on the east elevation that would say mattresses in red channel letters matching the existing signage. Staff recommends approval of the signage subject to the removal of the pylon sign on the north part of the property and replacement of the pylon sign on the east to conform with the existing sign code, so to have build a monument sign by August of 2020.
As long as the screen's up, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Which one of those mattress signs is the accurate proportion to the building?
I mean, this is how it would be on the building. I think this is just a zoomed-in view, from my understanding.
Because the upper one doesn't go as
Doesn't
large.
go all the way over.
It passes the windows on both sides.
Right.
You can go look at them, they're both up, right?
Did they agree to take down the sign immediately and rebuild the other one by 2020?
I haven't heard from the applicant or the owner.
Okay, so when it comes to the pylons along the road, I mean, that goes back to Circuit City days. And I think there was a very strong desire by the owner of the property, not necessarily, and probably the tenant, and I think it's part of their lease with regard to moving the pylon signs.
In
Have
looking
you
through,
heard anything from your? Yeah, come on up.
Yeah, please. Do we have to turn that on?
Okay. Do I have to say my name or something? Josh Brown from Sign Effects. So the latest update I had got from Bob's as far as the direction they'd like to take was they really like both of the pylons, obviously, for the value they bring. And they wanted to add this just as a straight addition to promote the mattresses, because I guess a lot of people know that they sell mattresses. And the happy medium that they were trying to appease both you guys and their own desires were to renovate the east pylon to conforming to a monument, but still remaining with the north pylon.
Which is along the freeway.
Yes, sir. Yep.
You really can't miss Bob's Furniture from the freeway. That's the kicker.
Yeah,
You can actually see the customer delivery or whatever it says too, or pickup.
On the north side of the building, you're saying?
On all the sides. I mean,
Well, I mean, remember when they went in though, too, we recommended that they put a sign on the south side of the building, because it's essentially a 3-sided building.
yeah, no, I'm not against it, but lacking that one pylon sign is not gonna be the end of the world. It's not like no one's gonna,
So the pylon sign, or the pile sign that we're talking about, is it the one directly beneath the great big billboard, which is
Yep.
always advertising a competing furniture store?
Yes.
And so
You'd be
now you're gonna
correct.
take that,
That one would stay, according to their proposal, and the one on,
we want your business to have signage, because we want your business to succeed, so signage is very important. And they're competing against big billboards that are,
Yeah, so the,
if we could take the one down on 76th Street, I'd be happy.
I'd go along with that too. I'm happy with leaving the one pylon sign up.
by the end of 2019?
so they would, on the one on 76, so the east pylon, they'd be looking to bring it into
Make it a
conformity with
monument.
the code, yeah, so they wouldn't be
See, I don't
getting
even
rid
know
of
if
it,
it's
but
gonna
they'd be
work there,
looking
'cause
to
there's
bring it into
sightlines.
code.
It's not,
I'd take it out,
well, they're,
you know what I'm saying?
the owner of the property, I mean, that's one of the problems here, one of the advantage to those signs and them being grandfathered is that the owner of the property owns those signs, right? No, it sort of does matter because it makes it more leasable. I don't,
You can't miss
Is-
Bob's Furniture on 76th Street,
yeah.
just saying.
I'm not sure I agree with all of that, because it's back behind Red Lobster. We all see it, we all know it, we know that it's there. But I'm not sure somebody just coming into town looking for furniture is gonna see that without the signage.
They'll be looking on their phone, where's Bob's Furniture?
Yeah, that's probably true.
It's a difficult location.
Well, and right, and this sign, sorry, so in this sign was just mainly to promote the mattresses, not necessarily another Bob's sign, but just mainly so that if they see Bob's or know it's there like you guys all do, this is just to inform you that maybe some of you may not have known that they sell mattresses. That's kind of the fog that they're trying to clear up here with their customer base.
So you're trying to ditch one sign in order to get permission to put the big mattress sign
They're
up?
not getting rid of any signs.
No, no.
They're not, they're adding the
update
sign
one.
and saying we wanna keep all of our signs, but we might modify one.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
They're not giving anything.
What's their multiple of the sign code at the moment?
It's, so,
I'm just asking the question.
it's 4.
Oh, that's simple question, simple answer.
But there's a, so the sign, and the sign code, if this building were right flush against 76th Street versus being behind another restaurant in a poorly planned place, right? The visibility of a sign that's adjacent to 76th Street at 200 square feet is much different than a building that's kind of stuck in a corner.
Up on top of a hill that you can see from
But you,
miles away.
you,
But they're still 4 times the code. Even, I don't disagree they're set back in a poor location, but that's, you can't change where the building is.
Staff would be fine with the compromise of taking the monument sign on 76th Street. If Bob's wishes to leave the pylon sign on the north part of the property.
yeah. I don't have a problem with that.
Is that acceptable?
And what was it? To
Presented here.
bring it into
Killing
conformity?
Monument sign.
To conformity. Okay, yeah.
If that's what staff wants, then.
I don't know, is there conditional, so this is, the only problem that I'm a little worried about is, and I hope Bob lasts forever and never moves,
Yeah.
right? But the next folks that come in now have the equivalent of a whole bunch of wall signs, right?
Well, you'd have
So-
to, sorry, not to cut you off. Go ahead.
So let's just pretend that Jim's furniture moves in, right? Now Jim can put signs where the mattresses were that don't say mattresses, and they can put signs where it says customer pickup.
They would need to get those approvals at the time that they were going
Yeah,
in.
but it's hard to take it away something.
It's hard to take away once they have it.
And maybe they'll do water beds and we'll have to add that on if that's a thing anymore.
Or Sun Valley water beds,
I do.
way back when, they were always,
Kept me warm in college.
if they ever leaked, they were made out of particle board and they
Yeah.
swelled up and broke apart. Not that I know this, but, all right.
Well,
I would-
no matter who gets in there, we want to make sure that the
Yeah, I mean-
customers can see
I mean,
where they're
so in a
located and
situation like
everything.
this, the minute should reflect that with regard to the mattress sign and customer pickup, it's not necessarily, they're not necessarily part and parcel of the business, they're kind of an auxiliary sign. And if, should someone else come in that, you know, this, all of the signs in the property would be examined, right?
Right.
Getting the monument sign on 76th Street is probably a good idea, so long as it doesn't create a sightline impairment that Alderperson Kastner is referring to. Because as I understand it, when we allowed them to continue with the pylon sign on 76th Street, it was because of potentially that.
I don't believe that there's a median cut at that exit.
There's
So,
not a
if-
median cut there, but if you look to your south.
right,
of
if
that
you're
circle,
leaving
do you see
near
that?
the Red Lobster,
So if you're trying to make a right-hand turn out of Red Lobster and you're looking up a hill,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a 4x8, whatever size it is, sign there, you can't see the traffic.
Potentially, we don't.
Potentially, you can't see it, and we don't know what you're gonna be able to see because the state has just reconfigured that intersection and they haven't completed it yet. So maybe they'll have completed it by the time it gets to the common council. Okay.
That's optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, the concern is I don't want someone to get into compliance and then create
And
a
create a
safety
problem.
issue, right? Okay,
Work with staff on the placement and size of the sign based on the new traffic patterns. Probably should put that right in there.
probably the minute should reflect that.
Yeah.
And before you do anything with that pylon, which will be forced to do if it doesn't interfere with the traffic pattern, okay?
I guess the resolution to the problem would be push it further west.
But then it defeats the purpose of a monument
much,
sign,
yeah, I know.
right? Because you can't see the sign as you approach and you get into the driveway, right? Pretty much, I think
Right,
so.
yeah, it would be set back too far.
Tough sign, because you come on, you have a
It's
press there.
it's a
anyway, so,
tough parcel,
The bridge.
right?
It is.
So that's all I'm trying to get. I'm not trying to. All right. So I I'd entertain a motion to approve the compromise offered by the applicant,
I'll make that a,
which is with regard to the pylon sign being brought into, be replaced and bring into conformance with the sign code, so long that it doesn't create a sightline problem, right?
Okay.
And that's gonna take some time, because the state's not done with that,
Thank you.
with the immediate
With the
area
plan.
to the north of there.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner
second.
Carlson, second by Commissioner Rogers, under discussion.
The minute or the recommendation from the staff is remove the north one, but I think our compromise is to keep the north one. Just want to make sure that's part of your motion.
That is part of my motion, and the reason so when Circuit City was there, Ultimate Electronics was there, the one that was after Ultimate Electronics, there was someone there? Was it? H.H. Gregg was there. That exposure along the freeway was always, and it always related to the billboard for the most part, and exactly what you said, that other people are advertising on their property, right? So that's kind of why that was grandfathered, I guess. Okay, motion was made, second, and all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item 6 is revised. Can you hear me? My mic is supposed to usually be over there, and I'm stretched out here.
Thank you.
Revised landscape plans for True Stone Financial Federal Credit Union, a proposed business to be located at 8400 West Forest Home Avenue. This is in the old Bank Mutual building. right?
Yep. So essentially, the new tenants, True Stone Financial, are looking to replace some of the old and dead landscaping. I think primarily some of the foliage and trees along here that obscured the view from 84th and from Forest Home, and to replace essentially in kind. The landscape architect or the city forester didn't see any issues with.
I'd make a
with the
motion to
landscape
approve the
plan.
item as presented. Is there anything else?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lean, all in favor? Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Item 7 is landscape plans for can never pronounce this. It's a silent T. Tsunami Express Car Wash, proposed car wash at roughly 5500 West Layton Avenue. Thank you. There's nothing you want to add, right? It's passed, so you probably don't want to.
You're good. You're good.
All right, so the car wash, is the car wash people here? Are they here? Anybody here from the car wash? Okay, want to go?
Sure, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So this item was held at the last Plan Commission meeting on July 9th. While the city forester and the landscape architect worked out some of the details, the plan to develop the parcel requires removing a lot of the existing diameter inches of trees on site. So Dennis, the city forester, and the landscape architect essentially were trying to hash out a plan to get to mitigate the loss of the trees that'll be required. So currently on site there are 965 diameter inches of trees. According to the Natural Resources Preservation Guide in the municipal code, 70% should be preserved or replaced with a commercial development, which would be 675 inches. They're preserving on site 465 inches and planting an additional 198 for 663. So based on our offsite mitigation value for those 12 inches remaining, that would be at $125 per diameter inch of trees to go to the city for mitigation purposes, which would be the $1,500 for mitigation. The city forester recommends this with the mitigation value of the $1,500 coming to the city.
Does the applicant agree?
I haven't heard anything counter.
So this is actually the site of the old May Nursery. And as part of the sale of this property, a box of photographs was left on the front porch for me to pick up. Do you know how many trees were there 50 years ago? None. Most of the trees that are there are ash. I mean, you know that, right? The difference between 465 or 663 inches and 675 inches seems to be almost de minimis, considering many of the trees grew there after the nursery closed down. So
What are you saying now?
I
We
would-
should waive the $1,500?
I don't think that, I mean, if they want to donate $1,500 to something, that would be great. But I think it's almost impossible you're looking at how many inches? You're looking at 12 inches? That's one box elder tree, potentially. Or a green ash tree that's dead on the site, and there are a lot of those, right?
Yeah, those weren't counted towards the total.
Just saying, right? So I'd make a motion to approve the item without the tree mitigation fee, but would kindly ask that this new business in the community donate $1,500 to something that benefits the community.
I'll second.
Under discussion, the retaining wall that's gonna be there, what is that gonna be made of?
Modular block. We're, as a condition for the recommendation in July, we were asking for a revised site plan with a cut sheet showing the material for the,
Have we gotten it yet?
we have not received that yet.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the most difficult site anywhere to develop, right? So immediately to the west is where the old well, actually, to the, if you look from the top of the screen and you went west, or what would that be, left? And then you went down south, and then you went east again. That's the former path of the Honey Creek. At some point in the 60s, 50s, 60s, or 70s, a ditch was created along the eastern side of the property, which would be to your right, which is where the creek now travels. So this parcel is essentially surrounded on all sides by a creek, either natural or man-made. It's a really challenging site, and part of this is too that it's a very expensive site to develop, and I don't want to nick them up for $1,500, just so you know, right?
I'm with you.
And I mean, I know it's in the scheme of it's a very expensive project. That's kind of where I'm going. And when I saw the pictures, most of the land in Greenfield, this is what's also sort of amazing when it comes to trees. There are more trees in Greenfield now than there probably were 100 years ago, because most of Greenfield was incredibly flat and farmland. Just so everybody knows. So that would be my motion.
Still a motion on the floor in a second.
Right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. That retaining wall is important, though. That cannot be a cheapie. I've seen some wonderful stuff in West Dallas where they've done retaining walls that seem to be poured in place. I mean, that's probably what they need to do. All right. Item 8A and 8B are basically exterior facade improvements for Restero and a master signage plan for Restero.
Thank you. This is the new design of the Restero Mazda dealership on Highway 100. What they're proposing is basically black and white aluminum panels, a brand-new facade. You'll see the existing picture up front. The canopy or awning design will in turn be a flatter front facade. And the existing windows and doors will be painted black to match the new look. This is the north elevation. You see today this canopy actually will remain and be painted black, and then all the existing materials on the building will be painted a mixture of grays and blacks and white to go with a new theme. Same with the south facade, and then this is the back east elevation will also be painted. Here's a color palette of, we've got blacks, whites, and grays, and then also the CMU will be painted a grayer color. These are just some interior pictures and night pictures. There's no new lighting on the building. The picture in the bottom right of your screen is just the interior lighting will seem to light up the building. And then they'll have some new lifts for vehicle display. And then item 8B is the master signage plan. So there will be 3 new signs on the building. We have Restero, the Mazda logo, and then on the north elevation, the word service. Those total 125 square feet. The property is allowed 224 square feet. There will be a new monument this is the design of the new monument. They are capped at 37 square feet. Today they have a 23 square foot sign, so they would have more signage than they have today if they wanted to utilize the maximum. And then I received an email that they would, conform to the height requirement of 10 feet. And with this master signage plan, if they were to want to switch out signs, as long as they stay within the square footage approved by the Plan Commission tonight, it wouldn't necessarily need to go back to the Plan Commission. Or staff
I'd make a
recommends,
motion
staff
to approve the item as presented. Commissioner Weiss seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. It's now 6:25 and Commissioner Spanholz has got here from work. Welcome. Commissioner Carlson can no longer vote,
Okay.
but can participate. Item number 9 is site landscaping and architectural review plans for the St. Jacobi Evangelical Lutheran Church at 8601 West Forest Home. Are you guys here? Oh, look at that crowd.
All right, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So the church, St. Jacobi's, is proposing a 8,690 square foot addition for the pre-K and fellowship space that would also add a playground addition. It would require the removal of approximately 22 parking spaces for leaving 108 spaces on site. The max required in the code is 92 parking spaces needed during Sunday service. The site currently has 3 buildings. They've got a residence in the upper portion of the parcel closest to Forest Home, the main church building, which is kind of closer to Forest Home, but a little bit further south, and then the school building is further back on the parcel. The existing building is shown in the sort of greenish gray color there. The 2-story addition would be primarily on the back and northeast of the existing church building. There would be the playground area located approximately right there, which would be enclosed by a 6-foot board-on-board fence and a retaining wall due to the grade changes at that location. So again, the playground area, approximately 2,500 square foot playground area located right there. Approximately right here, there is existing parking, so that's the parking that would be removed right now. They would add some additional parking spaces here where there's already existing impervious surface, where it's a drive lane essentially right now. For the landscape plan would require the removal of existing trees and shrubs on site, so 106 diameter inches of trees would be removed. The proposed landscape plan right now shows replacement with 66 diameter inches, primarily shrubs and trees located adjacent to the building right here. And the applicant's been working with the city forester to find a location further south on the parcel behind the playground where they may be able to replace some of the trees back there adjacent to the property line. This is the layout of the proposed addition. This is the ground floor, which would have the pre-K and kindergarten classrooms. The second story would have fellowship space, a large room here and a meeting room located right here. Architecturally, the applicant was trying to get it to match the existing brick that's on the church building, so it would be this this sand-colored brick on the addition located here, with infilled with cement lap siding. There would be a canopy located here where there's a doorway on the east elevation. There would be a retaining wall and railing approximately right here where the site goes down. So there's a little well on the ground floor here behind the retaining wall. Staff recommends approval of the site landscaping and architectural plans.
I make a motion to approve the plans as presented.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Are they being engineered in the state? Are they being engineered in
Under
the state?
oh, wait, wow.
Are the plans engineered in the state? Are the plans engineered in the state?
Has the state,
Has-
the state
have-
approved your plans?
But the engineer architect is from Wisconsin? Yes. Okay. Had a problem with that once.
Did you?
Yeah, we did. Faith.
Okay. These guys don't look like they have any problems.
No. Well, either did Faith.
All right, item 10 and 11 are kind of together, right? It's a temporary use permit for Spirit Halloween at 7801 West Layton Avenue and at 4260 South 76th Street. This is for a temporary use permit for Spirit Halloween.
I was wondering why we didn't approve this.
Yeah, I think so.
You're wondering why we didn't approve it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
It's already up.
Oh.
Sort of.
Signage.
It's temporarily up.
Is it? It's open for business.
But the signage
Oh,
is
yeah.
up. Yeah,
People
yes.
going the other
The
day.
sign, yeah. So
Question, it's open for business.
temporary use permits, the ordinance change that have to be approved, if longer than 30 days, have to be approved by the Plan Commission. So they are proposing hours of operation, to operate August 14th through November 2nd. Hours will vary. In the beginning, they'll be like 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., but as you get closer to Halloween, the longest operating hours will be 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. the week before Halloween. They'll have the varying with staff, number of staff will increase obviously as you get closer to Halloween too. But yes, temporary use permit for Spirit Halloween first at the former Golf Galaxy site, and then next number 11 is within Spring Mall.
Okay. So you guys are new at this, kind of, or are you?
I've been in the Spring Mall space for the past 2 years, and I've run that one, so.
Okay. All right. I don't have a problem with the use, but you're supposed to get permission to do it kind of before you do it.
Right.
Right. So, and you're doing it without permission right now, right?
Not advised by myself, but by upper management above me, wanted me to open this past weekend.
Right.
With the fact that all of the things that the inspectors had wanted completed were completed,
Right.
so.
So that's like a condition of occupancy, right? So you can't go in there and start doing everything until everything's working and in the position that it's supposed to be in, right? But you still need permission to do it. That's kind of like buying an old house, right? And somebody says, well, the plumbing and the heating works now, right? But you couldn't go in there because nobody said you could live there. So,
I completely understand where you guys are coming from.
yeah,
Fought it with my boss and his boss, but they had said that open anyways.
did they?
Yes, they did.
So what we could do, is deny this.
I know.
And we could say that the thousands of dollars that you put into the signage and all of the things to make the business ready, and we should do that, right? You should probably say, well, I can't, you don't say yes, right?
She's not on mic, we should have her come up to the mic anyhow.
I'm incredibly sort of disappointed that the people that own your company said, well, just do it anyways.
They're local anyhow, aren't they?
Not anymore.
No.
So the old, what is it, Halloween Express, which was, is it?
Oh, this is not the same?
They're not, they only have one location now, I think.
Not in the pumpkin that's gonna blow onto Highway 100?
I'm not sure if that's, I thought they only had one location. They've started getting out of that business from what I heard. So personally, I'll recommend approval for this, but if they do this again next year, I will be the first to say that, no,
I'll be the second.
because you can't do that. And the fact that they've told you to do that is inherently wrong.
Arrogant.
Well, don't say that because you may not, they're probably watching it because we're live streaming now, right?
They can't hear it.
So, I mean, technically, you don't even have approval until the common council approves it, which is,
The ordinance reads.
it is just here? Okay, I just wasn't, oh yeah, you're right.
We changed it.
Okay.
Temporary.
I'd entertain a motion to approve the items presented for both locations.
Second.
But man, that's not cool.
Well,
And you should
then-
tell them that that's not cool. All right, motion was made. Is there a second? Does everybody else agree with that position?
I do.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We have one more item, which is a big item. It's item 4, the conceptual, I know Steve's not here tonight. You can present your Audrey, right?
Right.
Yeah. It's the conceptual plan for the local component of the 84 South development at the northwest corner of 84th Street and West Layton Avenue. So you're all good. You're good.
Yeah, they were together.
Submitted by Scott Yelk and Rinka Architectural Firm. Audrey Giro, sorry. doing business as Rinka Kama Inc. We have a plan, and just give us a second, okay?
Steve is just one night a week here, or he can't go twice? He was here last night.
He went, yeah. I think he's in, are you seeing Muskego now or something, or McGuanago?
Okay.
Yeah, he's at another meeting apparently somewhere else. It's good to be busy, right?
Good evening. My name again is Audrey Grill. I'm with Rinka in Milwaukee. I'm a project manager for this project, The Local, which is at 84th and Layton. And just to give a little bit of background, this first slide shows the previous concept that that some of you have seen before, and what we've been doing is refining the design of the space because we have a better idea of who the tenant occupants will be of the buildings. And so I'll proceed to the next slide, which shows we've adjusted the sizes of the three buildings, C1, C2, and C3, and C4 has moved over to the west. What we're focusing on tonight is C1, C2, and C3, and the Beer Garden Plaza, which is in the center there. And I will zoom in again. And the concept here is very similar to what we had in the past. The goal is to create a really active space so that these buildings, they will be used for food and beverage, and they will have garage doors that open to the exterior. There will be a lot of exterior dining, and this slide shows primary circulation as well as primary entrances to the buildings. The largest arrows, the magenta color, those are the main entrances to the buildings, and you can see kind of in the southwest corner where it's labeled drop-off, that's where we really envision most of the vehicular drop-off occurring, and so that's very close to the main entries for C1 and C3, and then building C2 has its main entry off the north side. There's also, if you look at the blue arrows, that shows that there is pedestrian site access from the sidewalks at 84th and Layton Ave. And then this highlights where the exterior dining areas will be. So it's really envisioned to be a very active place and ideally activated year-round. That gridded structure over the beer garden, you'll see as we get to the renderings, that is a steel trellis structure that could be tented so that it could be used in the colder months as well for various events or just to extend that outdoor dining season into the colder months. And so just to get into the organization of the buildings a bit, so what you see as yellow is really the front of house of each of these buildings, which again would be a food and beverage use. The gray is the back of house, like the kitchens, utilities, restrooms. And so loading happens, excuse me, on the rear sides of the buildings where you see the gray. And sorry, just to back up a bit. So building C3, which is the one in the center, that is a 2-story building. And buildings C1 and C2 are single-story structure. So I'll advance now, and this shows the level 2 plan for building C3. And where you see the darker yellow, that's where you have indoor dining areas where it looks like a very pale yellow with an X through it. That just means that it's open to below. You can look over and look down into a really grand space, and that has a really nice view north towards that canopy structure area. And then on the west side of C3, that would be outdoor deck, and there could be dining areas there as well. On the south portion of the building where you see some diagonal hatched lines, that is screened area where there would be mechanical. So, and you'll see when we get to the renderings, the goal is for all of that mechanical to be screened from view so that you won't see that. And we did that for buildings C1 and C2 as well. We screened that mechanical. So we do have an animation, but we can come back and do that at the end or would it be possible to do it now? Thank you. renderings. Thank you.
Uncheck full screen, maybe.
And so I'll just kind of walk through some of the renderings again. These were also in the video, but this just highlights the main gateway entry as you approach from Surra Lane, and an aerial view that shows the massing of the three buildings, so you can see that central building is the taller two-story structure. This is the view from the drop-off, looking at the main entries for the two-story structure and then the western building. That outdoor beer garden with the structure that can be tented in the colder months. The view from within the beer garden. This is the view from the corner of Layton and 84th. And then an aerial view again. Thank you very much. Please let me know if you have any questions.
You have to push the button, remember.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you've considered, we've seen this in other cities that we've been to, where the inner courtyard there that we're looking at, which is really cool. This whole presentation is awesome. I'm very excited about the whole thing.
Thank you.
But we've seen this in other cities where the roof of that would be covered in like a glass or something. You're talking about tinting. I'm not sure what that means, but because I mean we're looking at this in cities south of us where the weather is not near the factor that it is here, and the cold is one thing, but the rain is another thing, and we've got that covered year round. You'd have people coming there to be able to eat outside in the rain with a covering. I just think, and there's so many different venues and things that we could do if that was covered. Have you guys considered that? And if so, why not?
That is a great question. And the answer is we're actually still investigating different ways to cover that structure. I don't know if you are familiar with the entertainment block project at all, but we did that. Rinka did that project as well, and we do have a portion of it that is covered
That
to
downtown.
It is downtown.
I actually have not. I've seen it everywhere else in the country, but I haven't seen it downtown Milwaukee yet.
So and that's a great example, and that I'd say that is a successful example of being able to extend that outdoor space in inclement weather. The answer is we're still looking for a way to provide coverage, and it wouldn't necessarily only be cold weather. I think it's just a little bit too soon because we're still in the concept design phase. We're still trying to find the right material and product that would allow us to cover that and extend that outdoor dining season.
I don't know what's downtown, but Kansas City, Louisville, St. Louis, they've all got glassed roofs, and it's just the coolest thing. And
It is, I agree. It's very cool.
Kind of wants you to go hang out there, and just kind of makes you want to go hang out there while there's bad weather.
Absolutely, I agree. And the answer is that could happen. We're still in concept phase, trying to find the right structures and products for that type of solution.
Okay.
I think everyone up here would
Don't forget to push
agree
the
with
button.
it.
Okay.
It's on.
What is it? I'm sorry. Thank you for pushing the button, I meant.
You bet. But I think we'd all support having that covered.
Okay.
I've been to the one downtown,
noted.
that's worked great. Here, I think it'd be fantastic, just extends the season.
Right.
Highly recommend it.
Okay. Thank you. I will take that strong recommendation back to the team and the client.
Everyone else is talking about cool stuff. I want to talk about garbage. What's that gonna be?
So I will go back to
Thank you, Carl, for taking us right there.
our enlarged plan here. Actually, I'm going to go back one more slide. So if you see there's an arrow that's kind of a reddish orange that shows, it says service entry. So the idea is there's a corral against the back of each building. Does this have a point?
It has a laser,
Oh, okay, great.
They can
There we
only
go.
see it up there, not in
Oh,
front of them.
okay.
That's okay.
So here's an example on the C3 building. And I'm going to zoom over to the next slide now. Oh, I'm sorry.
So they don't wheel them out and they'll pick them up that way.
Yeah, so well, that's the idea here. These are what we have dashed in are 2-yard dumpsters. So you could have the trash in the dumpsters there, and it's screened from view, so passersby will not see that, and then it can be wheeled out for collection.
So no car corrals in the parking lot.
We don't have cart corrals in the design at the moment. I know that's something that is being discussed, but at the moment, the idea is for it, no cart corrals, only corrals as drawn here on the buildings.
Is that gonna be enough, again, not to beat a dead horse here, but these are both high-intensity food, you need a lot of waste, a lot of garbage. I would be surprised there's enough space for you, because if the frequency you have them pick them up, I think you would still need cart corrals, if nothing else, to empty them, like many restaurants do. They have the big dumpster outside, they take it inside, you know, they dump the garbage at night.
Yeah, that's a
I
great
would think you
question.
gotta find a place to put the cart corral somewhere.
Yeah, that is a great question, and I think that's why, again, I apologize, the owner is not here tonight to speak more specifically to this, but I do believe we are looking for a place to put cart corrals as well.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Another question about Rinka?
Yes.
Plus, there's a rectangle, and it looks kind of funky in the video. What is it? Is it just a Uber waiting spot?
Where is that? I'm sorry.
The library.
Oh, yes. So that is a potential location for a library kiosk, which is something we,
So there are two sort of city components that we still haven't figured out and worked out or costed out. So you see the rectangle in the bottom left-hand corner. There was discussion early on about trying to get a library it's called a library carousel, which would provide library service to the western part of the city, which Alderperson Kastner and Alderperson Bailey have been very supportive of. So in order to have that there's some things that are going on. In order to have that carousel, we have to figure out how much it costs, right? We have to figure out how much it is to operate and maintain, and we have to provide I'm not an expert to speak on what a library carousel does.
Is it, you use your library card, check out a book from a vending machine kind of thing?
I
or what?
think that, I don't know, but I believe that's sort of how it is. I think Brown Deer has one on the northwest side. And I'm not sure how, so it sounds like it's a relatively expensive proposition. It sounds like it's relatively new to market. It seems as if there isn't a tremendous amount of experience. I mean, I think people are still learning how it works the best, kind of. There are a couple things to consider with regard to it. One is that it would likely need to be hooked up to our fiber system, okay? Right? Our fiber system, I thought, was on Layton Avenue here, and it actually runs along 92nd Street. Yeah. So in order to, I've been told that the cost of providing fiber from our system to that site, and potentially creating some sort of park or something too, where there would be public Wi-Fi, right, on our system. We can't sell it by law. Is $50,000 to $70,000. That's to get just to get the line there. The carousel may be closer to and it's unclear with the difficulty with this kind of technology is that 10 years ago, right? If you think about where technology was, I mean, 10 years ago I had an iPhone 5, I think, that I just went to U.S. Cellular and tried to create another line out of it, and they said it won't do it. But so a piece of a capital equipment like that is expensive, maybe upwards of $250,000. And if it has a life expectancy of 20 years, that's awesome, because you can amortize that cost over the time. But if it has a useful life of 3 years, so we have to go through all of those numbers to make sure, and what the options are to make sure that it's cost effective, it's sustainable, okay? But in credit to the developer and the architect, it's been an important consideration almost from day one. The theory that, in this moving society, that some of the library stuff, and there's a lot of stuff now, there's electronic books, there's, movies and video. It's a great place to go get stuff, right? My daughter sent me a meme, where somebody showed somebody a library card. It's like, wow, I just saved all this money. I can go watch these movies for free. It's hard to explain. But, so that's where they've kind of put that spot. There's another component to this that, from the Public Celebration Committee, or the Beautification Committee, sorry. The Beautification Committee has done Commissioner Carlson sits on the beautification committee. They have some excess funds that they'd like to invest into public art. And this was one of the areas that we thought that art would be spectacular to have. And we haven't picked an artist, and we haven't picked out how we're gonna pick an artist. We haven't picked out if they're gonna pick an artist, or they're gonna pick somebody, or if they know somebody that can fabricate art, that's really cool. We haven't figured out any of that stuff yet. So there are a couple sort of placeholders too. One is that would be the most obvious place for a piece of art that would get the most exposure. But then there are other places on the site, like
Maybe somewhere.
that place, which there's some concern because you snowplow and you do things, right?
Right.
And is it temporary art, you know, that you plug into the ground, you know, in the summer and you pull it out, you know, so those kinds of things have not been worked out. Tonight is designed to be a conceptual review of the plan, right? They will have to come back likely in a month or so, based on the kind of input that's generated here, with a more, I guess, more firm site and landscaping plan, you know, where they say that there's 16 lilies here, you know, where you just see color, right? Or whatever it is. From my perspective, I mean, this is the most important part of the site. There is a view of the roof, I think. So if you look, and you can't zoom in, but if you look sort of about 2 o'clock, you see like, looks like grass up there. And you see some tables. I think that's gonna be one of the best parts of the place to be. You'll also see that there are garage doors that open to that space. It would be nice if that space were bigger. And I understand that it's seasonal, and in the winter you may not be able to do something, but that would sure be a cool spot to hang out. It's my understanding that the green stuff that you see there, it's vegetation, and that's designed to temper the sounds from Layton Avenue, you know. But having been downtown, like, say, Cafe Benelux or something, right?
It's awesome, the second, but
I mean, if you go there between sort of April and almost into the football season when it's almost snowing, most people would prefer to sit up on the roof. And the interior space is kind of where you get to go if you can't get on the roof.
Was that new one out in Brookfield? It was great.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd like to see kind of more of that, I guess, in
Outdoor
it.
seating, outdoor eating.
And
Yeah, I think that's a great comment, and that's definitely something we're going to address further as we move, you know, further into the design. I think some things we had talked about is to get greenery up there, we could do movable planters. It doesn't have to be a large swath of green like you're seeing up there at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, and
I like the concept of what you're doing here. The question is, depending what your future tenants that you've signed here is, why not have a second store with each having its own? Again, I'm not sure what your uses are here and what your tenants are. You have a chance to build it once.
yeah, I mean, I sort of,
No,
I don't think parking's gonna matter.
no, I don't think
I
parking.
don't either, I mean.
I think there's so much
that could
parking
be
in this
a
site that-
restriction.
I mean, the difficulty is that,
Cross easement with easement.
I think the difficulty too is we don't know who the tenants are.
Yep.
And I
That's my comment,
understand
yeah.
that they can't sort of disclose who the tenants
Yeah,
are.
that-
Can I just say that Greenfield needs a really good coffee shop? And we love Starbucks, we've already got one, we're potentially getting another, but this would be a great location for a really good roaster, something local, something fresh from outside of what we've got in Greenfield now, and this would just be a great,
Even if two
Great
of the
place
buildings
for
had a
that.
second story with outdoor patio space.
Who? What?
I said even if two of the buildings had a
I
second
mean,
story.
I think that would be really cool, and I think it
It would
depends on,
be,
and I think it
yeah.
really
It all
depends on
depends on the tenant and what you have lined up,
Right.
but to me, that's, if I could give you guidance, I would do that, because I think that'd be very, very popular.
Absolutely. We'll definitely take that comment back to the ownership.
I think we
The
could figure out
difficulty
parking
has always been for me and for us, I think, is that we continue to be viewed as like, oh, you're just sort of the south side and you don't really need anything cool because you just shop at Lane Bryant and you eat at McDonald's. And if you really want to splurge, you go to Olive Garden, and they're all wonderful places, I'm not suggesting otherwise, right? But there, I think they declare bankruptcy,
I'm not sure.
but there's probably a Lane Bryant off the rack somewhere. Maybe it's
I have
operating
no
in the
idea.
Halloween Express or whatever they
Defer
were.
to you on that one.
But I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that this, I mean, from my perspective, and I think this isn't the first time I've said that, this has really got to be the cool part.
Yeah.
And it can't be like, well, Brookfield, it's cooler, the town of Brookfield, I mean, so that just deserves to be cooler, and this doesn't have to be that cool, because that's, I think, what we're all trying to get at.
If you can get 2 outdoor spots at least up there, that'd be outstanding.
If you could, and it's even like at 68th and Wells where the Collectivo is.
Right.
I understand Collectivo apparently isn't expanding in Milwaukee, they're expanding in Madison and Chicago and stuff. But that's not an expensive building.
No.
But it's a really cool building.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And being one that probably goes to Starbucks almost every day, right? I like Starbucks, like you say, but that experience isn't the same as going to the Collectivo at 68th and Wells.
Right, absolutely.
I think that they do, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that kind of worries me a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, because you think of, that's a great example, that Collectiva, the outdoor space they have there with the little fire pit. They have the doors that open. It's a very neat, kind of retro, eclectic coffee shop.
Right, and it's just, it's more active than a typical Starbucks or,
Which
yeah.
this would be a perfect place for, if that was part of your tenant base, that could work in this type of environment with the rest of the doors and the mixed
Right.
space. You have the beer garden for this one, for the one place here. They could work together quite nicely.
I will just say this, and I just want to, so there's this idea that, well, there's a lot more people there, right? There's 370,000 people who live within 5 miles of this corner. That's a lot of
Very
people,
heavily
A lot,
trafficked.
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So if you went to the Starbucks, which still doesn't have a drive-through on 76th Street, and I won't get into their numbers, but I think I kind of know what they are, and know what they're expecting on Loomis and Layton, it's like, well, they'll make about 19,000, right? And we'll just say widgets, they'll make 19,000 widgets. And the store that doesn't even have a drive-through on 76 and Layton is in the 30,000 widgets without a drive-through. There is a strong desire, like incredibly strong desire, that something be cool and not kind of walking across the parking lot to a concrete slab surrounded by a wire rope to have a cup of coffee. Which is why I like the center piece here and why I like the garage doors and architecturally.
It opens
But a lot of it depends on who that tenant is. Because if one of them isn't a cool kind of coffee place, and one of them isn't a kind of cool brewery place, and one of them isn't a kind of, aren't kind of cool restaurant places or breakfast places, then you might as well just put IHOP in, right?
So, and then
I'm not trying, and not that IHOP's bad by any means.
further, that the tinting without the open, the open roof could really bring this, I don't see that as a step up. I see that, I'm just afraid of what that's gonna look like. It could bring it real drab, and I mean, maybe that can be done really cool, and I just don't know how that's done. But just tinting that off to get coverage during the winter or bad weather is not near as attractive as what we're talking about, trying to keep open space, open air as much as we can in order to really make this attractive and viable.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something we've been talking about, thinking about if there are viewing parties for a sporting event or a musical, a band where that would happen. So we've got some ideas in the works on that.
Excellent.
The other thing where that parking is, going up to the beer garden, you're gonna put something there to block auto lights. Nothing worse than sitting there and people put it through the door.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've said this before, but I do love driving 894 from west to east, and the lighting pattern that we're seeing in the back of the building. I just think this is really a great look, and we're real impressed with what you guys have done already. And
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Love it. Look forward to seeing the next round.
Great. Thank you.
The most talked about thing in the city, this and the turf, the skateboard thing. These two issues are the two biggest things.
Well,
So it's nice to see this come before.
we're very excited to be working on this project. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have comments for it, that you'd like to see this, or you'd like to?
Excited.
Thank you.
Thanks, Audrey.
No.
Mike, I just have a question about the library thing. Would the primary users be the people in the apartments, or?
I think the primary users are anybody, so when they talk about 84 South and being a mixed-use development and all this stuff, it's supposed to be kind of a place where people go to sort of as a mini community center, right? Where you have a cup of coffee, you drop off the library book, you pick up a video, you go grocery shopping, you stop at a restaurant, maybe you go to work, or maybe you live there. The advantage, I think, that Alderperson Caster's
Thank
talked
you.
about for years is trying to get, you know, the Greenfield Public Library is pretty far on the eastern, it's on the eastern third of the city, right? So as you get further west, the folks that might live in the Whitnall district or in the west side of, you know, Greenfield in the Greenfield district, you know, it'd be nice for them to have some kind of access.
I would suspect you'd be able to order a book from Brown Deer and have it shipped to that kiosk and be able to pick it up at a security.
I would suspect you could do that, since you do that at the other libraries
Yeah.
Yeah,
manually, so I would think
exactly.
that'd be an option. But
I-
the question is it just viable? I doubt that right now it's viable.
Economically?
Exactly, and that's not to be a Debbie Downer on it, but I hate to see us spend that kind of money and not be used, and we could spend that money more prudently elsewhere.
So there needs to be, I mean, Mike, I guess my whole point is we need to really do a
Need more
deep dive into it. And, you know, we haven't done the deep dive into it because quite frankly, 2 years ago or 3 years ago when this started, things were much different then, right? I mean, if you just look at when you go to Walmart and you buy, remember Vudu, you know, it was like a streaming service and everything's changing, right?
And the
So the longer you wait, the more hopefully that you're in tune with the existing technology that isn't going to change as quickly, or it's kind of reached its maturity level, or whatever that right word is.
And the question, could that be wireless hooked up through like a VPN network rather than a hard connection to save on cost for that kiosk?
All of that stuff, right? I mean, there was an idea that with our, I mean, we have a wonderful fiber system that serves the school districts in the city. It's all connected. We can't commercially sell it, and that's for all sorts of reasons.
But you could enjoy it in.
But if you could get that thing piped in,
Be awesome.
and you would have, I mean, in our pipe, you know, like,
Oh, yeah, it's a beast.
it's a beast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost limitless and as fast as lightning, and that depends on the equipment that you have and all that stuff, but it's really good, right? So if you're having a coffee in whatever it's called, the beer garden or the,
garden.
yeah,
Local.
yeah, the local, that there is high-speed internet available and all of those kinds of things. And maybe you can read the book that you got, the e-book that you got from the library there. I mean, those kinds of things. I'm not an expert on that stuff. But the technology's changing so quickly, that screens and portable screens, but the connection is the important thing, right?
Yeah, so if
As opposed to the
if we've got in
equipment.
the garden, we've got like the fastest Wi-Fi available in the city.
We do. I mean, it's
That's a huge draw. I mean,
It would be.
think about
That's a
that.
big deal.
People,
Yeah.
so it's kind of, I mean, that's kind of where we're going.
People that don't have unlimited plans on their phone, it'd be an advantage too.
yeah.
It would be a huge advantage.
So we-
So,
That would make it available to everyone.
and we can't make it commercially available. We can make it, you know, as part of a library or a park or something, right? So,
Yeah.
Yep.
A library, yes, there would serve well if they do open a coffee shop too.
that's the point, right? So that's another reason to go there. And that's kind of like trying to tie all that in, but making it commercially viable and getting it fit in and making sure your technology doesn't, you know, doesn't lag what you're trying to accomplish is a big deal, so. Okay, but everybody, that's good?
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm excited. Can't wait.
Well, now that they've gone, maybe we should hold it for 3 months.
We're not even voting on it, so.
We're not doing anything. Okay, you have a community manager
Yeah,
report?
I'll try to wrap this up quickly. I have a list. Aurora is open at 84 South. I have not heard anything about like an open house or ribbon cutting or anything, but
House was great.
there was an open house?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was awesome. I went to it.
We didn't know about it.
I'm with you, Christy. I didn't hear anything about it either.
Me either.
Okay, staff wasn't invited. All right.
Do you remember hearing
My
about,
speech was long, and I had butterflies.
Okay.
And Butterley.
What do I know? I just work here.
I think you were on vacation.
I think you were.
But I didn't get an email.
That's really nice.
Should've.
No.
Well, we didn't want you to come.
Okay,
Just
Well, that's why I wasn't there.
the former Knights of Columbus site on 103rd, just west of the freeway, has cars parked on it, and there is a developer interested in some sort of maybe physical therapy hospital. Just wanted to let you know that there's inquiries about a possible redevelopment of that site. And they actually are flying in from Texas next week to meet with us.
How big a site is it?
I don't know. They wouldn't take the, they would outlot the portion in front of Oklahoma. It's 20, maybe up to a $20 million project
Nice.
and taxable. Also today I received a phone call and I received an inquiry many months ago about redevelopment of Barnes and Noble. I think it's inevitable that someday it would close. Also interested in some sort of medical use at that site. That's all I know, but they are coming into town to meet with us tomorrow. The LME trucking terminal closed. That's on Layton Avenue, just west of Highway 100. Also, again, receive some inquiry phone calls from a broker about multifamily and or a hotel. It's the southern boundary is 894, or not, excuse me, not 894, 43. So it'd be a great visible for, yeah, that would be great. So I told him slam dunk with a hotel. Also, Brixmore called me, well, I think it was their broker, called me to update that they've exhausted all big users, Fleet Farm, Woodman's just like a one user for that entire 29-acre site, and said that it seems they'll have to split into several different uses, like a multi-family use, maybe commercial. So that was the only update he gave me, that they seem to have exhausted all big one users for that site.
Just from my perspective, I would not be in favor of creating outlots and just parceling up the site.
It's gotta be similar to what we did 84 South.
Big, yeah,
Planned
big
development.
picture,
I
yep.
mean, it's never going to be as successful as 84 South, I don't
But
think,
that
but it's
concept-
got to be something that's not just bits and pieces, and I
Yep.
will not support anything other than that.
And then we're having active conversations with Wisconsin Department of Transportation for Loomis Road and Loomis Crossing area. We did formally submit a letter to them. There's the old turf parcel, which is where the ramp goes past, asking them to consider that excess as surplus land that they could then, that the city could then obtain ownership eventually. So you have to submit a formal request asking the DOT to consider that. So we did submit that yesterday. And then also still active conversations about the big parcel, well, it's not really parcel, but the just the redevelopment potential for the park and ride and all the extra land to the south of that.
Yeah, so there's kind of like two paths. The turf parcel is different, it's a separate distinct, it's like an excess parcel. There's a significant amount of interest in that parcel among the
That's only an
skateboarding
acre.
among the skateboarding community worldwide. There have been discussions, I think, with the Tony Hawk Foundation and a bunch of others. So there's a faster track to deal with an excess parcel and to get that going. The ultimate plan is, I think, to make it a city park, right? But with the fundraising coming from elsewhere, and it seems like it's ripe with opportunity for
Got some legs
fundraising.
to it. It's getting good public, I mean, people are talking
It
about
would be it would be a very, very cool thing, and it's all in its infancy. Working with the 27th Street Bid Board, they're kind of heading it up as the umbrella, I guess, kind of as the
Oversight.
as the nonprofit, keeping things. Working with Carmen High School in the city of Milwaukee, working with a couple other nonprofits, working with a bunch of other skateboarders that now have great jobs and skateboard companies and stuff. So I think it'll be a cool thing. Which he's talking about with the interchange. There's some potentially very exciting stuff. So,
Nice.
which we can't talk about.
Correct.
Fair enough.
That one I know about.
Yeah. So, just one quick thing about this Halloween thing. I do not like doing that. I mean, I don't like people that stick it in our eye and say, we're gonna do it anyways. And,
They
and
have signs all over the street on
They've been
Lincoln
open
Avenue,
since the
too.
last weekend. 'cause we
I know,
drove.
and I've watched it, and you were on vacation, and I saw this.
were open this weekend.
No, and I'm not,
I told her, I talked to her last week, and she assured me they wouldn't be opening till
yeah, I
the
mean,
14th, because I said, plan commission, and the inspectors didn't even sign off till today. There was plumbing inspection issues, fire department didn't sign off.
They were open. They had people coming and going
Yeah.
over the weekend.
if that happens again,
You just say no to it. And sorry, whatever investment you have, sorry.
so that's the catch-22, right? Like at this meeting tonight,
Yeah.
could have said, no, you're not gonna do it, you're closed.
That was
Could,
But it not only hurts them, it hurts the property owner that.
Exactly, I know, and
it
that's.
hurt-
what
it
I-
hurts the kids that are gonna be working there, it hurts all sorts of people,
I know.
right?
Could've just held them over until next month and said they can't open until then.
Could have.
Then you're not.
So that's the catch-22 when you're, did you ever read the book Billy Budd by Herman Melville, the guy who wrote Moby Dick, right? Did you? Ever read that? And it's a bad analogy, right? But there's this idea that, well, the law is the law, and if you don't follow the law in the ship, then you walk the plank, right? But then there's the other side of it. It's like, do you kind of try to find the common ground and you try to do what's right, even if it's against the ship rules, right? If I'm not mistaken, in that book, the cabin boy broke the rules, but did the right thing, and the captain ultimately made him walk the plank because he broke the rules. It's always the quandary when you're doing this stuff, right? Right? And the captain ultimately, I believe, and this is probably a really bad paraphrasing, but the captain ultimately lost the respect of his crew because while he followed the law and did what the law said, he punished somebody that was trying to do the right thing.
I can't read the book, you wrecked it.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
It's actually not, I mean,
Spoiler alert.
it's written kind of in an English prose that makes it difficult to read. Herman Melville is a little bit difficult, but
Well, they've been warned for next year now.
they have been warned, and I don't like tolerating that stuff. I mean, but there's a lot more to it than that.
You're right.
I do want to maybe write a letter to them, though,
I would, yeah.
so, okay.
That was documented. That'd probably make prudent.
Absolutely, that's just wrong.
Yep.
So with that being said, anything else from anybody? Any questions about anything? Yeah,
I have a little of announcement to make.
what's that?
My wife accepted a job in Charleston.
South
Wow.
Carolina.
Really?
Oh, my God.
You're moving,
Awesome.
my friend.
You're gonna miss her a lot, aren't you?
Moving in the next month.
I heard that's a
Like Charleston.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
I've heard that's
Beer garden all year long.
Yeah.
I heard that's an awful community that has just no history or you know, just,
Yeah, that's awesome.
no. Congratulations.
Yeah,
So when will you be, when do you think you'll be stepping down?
I don't know, probably next month, like,
Okay. Okay, very, no, just let us know, because we gotta, yeah. Is your move contingent on you getting a job?
not necessarily, it just,
It's helpful to have one. though.
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I wanna pay.
Wow, I've known you for a long time. Our kids grew up playing baseball, right? And now they're like taller than us, but, yeah, yeah.
I don't blame that.
That's why you have to cover this stuff, right? That was the old plan.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, that is awesome.
Well, congratulations.
Okay, I'll enter, by Commissioner Weiss, second by Commissioner Council, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, bye. Good night.
Aye.
Do you turn that on?
Aye.
Do I turn it on?